Mr. Barnes, thank you very much for being here. Read and listened to your testimony, agreed with much of it, especially your focus on telling the truth about the defense of natural rights across the world. I guess I'm having trouble squaring your testimony with the current reality because we have seen a pretty unprecedented assault on democracy promotion from this State Department. As you know, 389 of DRL's 391 democracy promotion grants have been canceled. And so I guess I want to understand how you are going to make good on the promises you're making to this committee, given the restrictions that exist on you. I'll give you another example. Secretary Rubio has issued a memorandum this summer that says the State Department should avoid opining on the fairness or integrity of an electoral process and simply just congratulate the winning candidate. So how can you tell the truth about an election that is rigged or patently unfair if you have essentially a gag order placed on you by the Secretary telling you to provide no opinion, telling you to not tell the truth, even when you know that an election overseas is not a fair or on the level election?
Yeah, Senator, thank you for the question. On the making statements about elections, the idea that you're putting something forward publicly, and that guidance I received, I was not part of drafting that guidance, but I saw it when it came out, probably just like you did. That public statements aren't put out on that. I don't think that limits us to raising private concerns. So another thing the Secretary has said regularly is that he espouses what he calls a mature foreign policy, where whether it's an ally or an adversary, we have to be able to raise issues with them.
So when you say telling the truth is important, you mean that to be in private, behind closed doors? You don't believe that telling the truth about the health of a foreign country's democracy or elections needs to be said out loud?
Senator, I think it's always important to tell the truth. I think we have lots of reporting that does underscore those issues. I think that we listen to many civil society groups on these topics, and we discuss them certainly internally. But I think we do raise these issues privately. I think we do raise them publicly when it serves American interests.
Is the freedom of assembly a natural right?
Yeah, I think I would include that as a natural right.
So can you explain why the freedom of assembly has been removed from State Department human rights reports? It is no longer listed as a right that this administration protects and advances globally.
Senator, so I've not been in DRL for months now, but I understand the rationale. I don't know the exact rationale for the freedom of assembly, but I know some sections were cut that did not adhere directly to the requested statute. So I know that the Secretary had a vision for the reports being shorter, being more readable and digestible, and reports that tacked as close to statute as possible.
I just don't know how you're actually going to follow through on the commitments you're making in your testimony. We're not funding any organizations and groups that help us tell the truth anymore. We have cut all but 2 DRL grants. You've got effectively a gag order placed on you that says that, as you admit in front of this committee, you can only raise private concerns about the health of a democracy. You no longer can raise those concerns publicly. I think this is a watershed moment for our country if we effectively cease publicly advocating for democracy and the freedom of assembly abroad. Mr. Bazzi, I want to ask you about how this new direction from the State Department may impact your work. I've been to Tunisia. I think I was the first member of the Senate to meet with Said when we had some hope that he was going to be a reformer, not a despot. He recently issued an order of arrest for one of my constituents on charges of terrorism. The charge is essentially that my constituent sent a report on human rights abuses to the State Department, and now if he returns to Tunisia, he'll be locked up. Do you believe that under the current guidance issued to you by Secretary Rubio, you have the ability to speak up for this particular constituent that I know we've raised with you in private meetings? Do you believe that you are limited in the ways as ambassador that you can speak up against the targeting of human rights defenders, in particular American citizens, in and outside Tunisia?
Thank you for that question, Senator. And also, I want to thank your staff. I did meet with your staff yesterday. I had a great conversation with your staff, so thank you for that, Senator. So one of the things in my statement also said, somebody myself that immigrated, to the United States, and somebody that grew up in a bad area, during war. You always you got to protect, especially I wasn't American at the time, but being in the military, that's the biggest things that you have to safeguard Americans, abroad. And that's one of my missions, to make sure that our Americans are safeguarded, in Tunisia, either if they're visiting, working, or they're living abroad. And if there's any issues and concerns of any of our any Americans been arrested or detained of any charge, I will be conferring with our administration, also with our government counterparts in Tunisia, to see what the issues, what the concerns are for whatever issues that they have with that individual. And I relay here to our United States administration to see what we can do to get that person out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm asking you for a broader commitment. I understand your first responsibility is to protect Americans and their safety, but I think it's also important for you to speak up on behalf of the rights of Tunisians, but also Tunisian Americans, when it comes to criticisms of the government. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
During a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing, Senator Chris Murphy, DCT, raised concerns with the nominees regarding the ability to publicly speak out against unfair elections and human rights violations in foreign countries. He pointed out that the current administration had imposed significant restrictions on democracy promotion, noting that 389 out of 391 democracy promotion grants from the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, DRL, had been cancelled. This, according to Murphy, raised questions about how the nominees could live up to their promises to defend natural rights and democracy worldwide in light of these cuts. Murphy also referenced a memorandum issued by Secretary Rubio that directed the State Department to refrain from commenting on the fairness or integrity of electoral processes abroad. The memo advised diplomats to simply congratulate the winning candidate, which Murphy criticized as an obstacle to truth-telling, particularly when it came to elections that were clearly rigged or unfair. He asked the nominees how they could speak the truth about such elections if they were restricted from doing so publicly, especially when their guidance from the Secretary effectively placed a gag order on such opinions. In response, Minister Barnes acknowledged the guidance but emphasized that it did not prevent the State Department from raising concerns behind closed doors. He stressed that the department continued to privately discuss these issues with foreign governments and to raise them publicly when it served U.S. interests. Barnes also insisted that it was always important to tell the truth, though he implied that, under the current administration, this truth might be expressed more privately than publicly. Murphy then shifted focus to a broader issue, questioning why the administration had removed freedom of assembly from its human rights reports, a right that had previously been included as a critical part of democracy advocacy. Barnes, while not offering a clear rationale, stated that some sections of the human rights reports were cut in an effort to align more closely with statutory requirements and to make the reports shorter and more digestible. This explanation, however, did little to assuage Murphy's concerns that such cuts signified a retreat from global democracy promotion. The hearing also saw further discussion about the consequences of the new direction taken by the State Department. In particular, Senator Murphy raised concerns about a specific case involving a U.S. citizen who faced charges in Tunisia for reporting on human rights abuses to the U.S. State Department. The charge was effectively a retaliation for the individual's advocacy. Murphy questioned Ambassador Botsi, who was present at the hearing, about how the new guidance from Secretary Rubio would affect his ability to speak out on behalf of human rights defenders, especially when it involved American citizens or dissidents abroad. Botsi reassured the committee that protecting Americans abroad remained a top priority. He explained that his office would continue to work with both U.S. and foreign officials to resolve such issues, including helping American citizens facing unjust charges or imprisonment in Tunisia. However, Murphy pressed him on whether the new policies hindered the ability of diplomats like Botsi to speak out publicly against abuses, such as the targeting of human rights defenders. In conclusion, the committee members expressed deep concern over what they saw as a shift in U.S. foreign policy, one that, in their view, placed limits on the ability to speak out for democracy and human rights on the international stage. They argued that this could have long-term consequences not only for global democracy promotion, but also for the safety and well-being of those fighting for basic human rights around the world.